a wine tasting trip in Fredericksburg, nice weekend getaway to Bourbon Street in New Orleans, maybe going to the Strip in Las Vegas, or even going up the street to a fancy restaurant here in Stone Oak. What do all these things have in common? Cost money. You're definitely going to want to listen to this episode where we are talking about travel smart, but spend smarter. Hello, everybody, and welcome to SWBC's Uncharted Wealth Podcast, where we break down the complex financial topics in easy-to-understand ways so you can navigate your journey with confidence. I'm your host, Mike Walters. I'm a wealth advisor and a certified financial planner here at SWBC. And today we are in vacation mode. You notice I'm not wearing a tie today. That's what vacation mode means, okay? So today is travel smart, spend less. Why budgeting for your mini vacations is the right thing to do. Whether you're dreaming of taking a weekend beach trip or even like a staycation or something like that, this episode is going to be packed with helpful tips to help you plan smarter and not blow your budget, okay, which we like that around here, okay? So let's start with the why. Everybody loves to take vacations, okay? It's good for the soul, right? But you don't have to derail your financial plan and blow your budget out like crazy to do these types of things, okay? People think they have to choose between being financially responsible and then enjoying what they've been working for. So today's episode is really going to break down how you can achieve both, okay? So that way, maybe you work towards even the bigger and the badder trips later on, okay? So first segment, we'll start with how to budget for your mini vacations, okay? First, you need to determine what you can afford, right? So we've talked about budgeting before, but here's a different way to think about it. Set up what they call a sinking fund, okay? So this is going to be your vacation sinking fund. It's a separate bucket of savings that you are going to put money into periodically, specifically for this vacation, okay? And start thinking about what you're going to be doing on this vacation, right? So whether it's a staycation or a small trip or something, right? So here's some ideas, okay? A local staycation. So if you're staying near your home, maybe doing something around the city, right? Maybe a couple $100, $100 to $300, right? Or if you're going to take a nearby road trip, okay? So we're in San Antonio. Maybe I want to take a weekend trip to Port A and do some fishing. It's probably going to cost a little bit more money. So think about in the range between maybe $300 to $600. Or if you're a little bit more fancy than I am, fly somewhere nicer, okay? So like maybe you want to go to Colorado and check out the mountains, or go to Florida to see actually what white sand looks like, because we don't really get to see that here in Texas. You're going to have to plan a little bit more for that, right? So somewhere between maybe $500 to $1,000, especially, that's per person, by the way, okay? So $500 to $1,000. But setting that travel budget first is going to be the most important thing. So really needing to know how much can you realistically spend. You have to think about, eating 3 square meals a day. Breakfast is the most important part of your day. So you got to remember you have a good breakfast. If you're going to have to be, like let's say it's not a trip that you can drive to, right? So if you're flying somewhere, do you get a rental car? Are you going to have to Uber everywhere? So those kind of transportation costs are going to play into the budget. And then also where you stay is going to be a big deal, right? Hotels, Airbnbs, staying with friends and family, that can all come into the picture, but you definitely want to compare costs, because just seeing the first thing that pops up to you when you Google search your destination is usually not going to be the best deal that you can find. So definitely compare costs for what you're going to do. And then I always say, like, if you are going to do some type of mini vacation, there should be one like crowning gem or crowning jewel, I don't know, something like that, just really highlights your vacation. So like for me, I'm a pretty simple guy. I don't like to do extravagant things. So if I'm going to take a trip to the beach to go fishing, I always want to go eat at a real fancy like seafood restaurant, all you can eat crab legs or something like that. That is what I want to plan around that trip, okay? So make sure you get that part of your trip covered, and everything else can kind of fall after that, right? So when to choose one over the other, right? So maybe you spend more on the food, less on the lodging, It's all really going to just depend on what your lifestyle and what your budget is going to be. So this leads me into the next segment of where is your money actually going on these trips, okay? And so I kind of talked about it a little bit there in that last segment, but here's a quick breakdown of the usual suspects, okay? And I've written them down here. So transportation, right? Are you going to be driving there? You have to think about how much fuel you're going to take to get there. Or are you going to be flying there? What are flights going to be? Are you going to try and get a one-way flight, or are you going to have a layover somewhere? Those are the things you got to think about. Now, when it comes to booking your flights, okay, there's some tips out there that you can take to potentially lower your costs, like going to get your flight on a Tuesday or something. That's my wife always does that. When we go to book flights, you go look for the rates on a random Tuesday, and you'll find cheaper rates than when you look on a Saturday or Sunday, which is crazy. And definitely don't do it last minute, because then you're kind of forced into whatever prices are there. So lodging, we already talked about, whether you do a hotel, an Airbnb, food. I am a food lover, okay, so pay up for food if that's you, but I want to spend more money on the nice restaurants and going to eat that fine dining cuisine kind of experience, right? And then always, if you're going to have activities or you want to plan for extras like, bringing souvenirs back and stuff like that, you always want to make sure that that's part of your budget. All right, so here is a great travel budget formula for you to use. Right here. Put it up there. Okay, here we go. 30% to your lodging, 25% towards food, 20% to transport, 15% for your activities, and then the last 10% needs to be a buffer, okay? A buffer. What is a buffer, you might ask? The buffer is for emergencies, like if you're out on a trip and all of a sudden your car breaks down, or something crazy happens, whatever. You need to have some type of emergency fund for your trip. Yes, you need to have a separate emergency fund for your trip. And I'm telling you, in the formula, 10% of your overall vacation budget should be for that buffer, okay? Now, we've already talked about this in the past as well, but there are some great tools out there to help you budget. Some of the ones that I've had clients tell me they use is like Mint, YNAB, which stands for You Need a Budget, and my personal favorite, Monarch Money, which I personally use. I like that. These can also help you budget for these mini vacations. Now, brings us to the uncharted territories of today's episode, which are going to be the budget smart travel hacks, right? So I mentioned one of these already earlier, but the best thing when booking flights is to do it during just a random time in the week, like a Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon or something like that, right? So it's when the least amount of people are thinking about booking their flights. Okay, that's when you're going to find the best rates on these websites. Using travel rewards or some of these credit cards. Now, I know we've talked about in the past these high interest credit cards being not ideal to use in a financial plan, but if you're using them the correct way, you should be putting all your travel expenses on some of these cards where you're getting airline miles and stuff, so that way you can apply these towards your future trips and get some nice little discounts. There is a setting that you can set on Google for Google Flights where they'll send you price alerts. So you can set, hey, I want to know when a flight to this destination goes between this range, and they will send you an alert and say, hey, there's a good deal, right? So that's just another way to get flights cheaper. And then as far as lodging, maybe where you're going, there's somebody stay with a friend, stay with a family member, or check out Airbnb or some of these VRBO websites. They can offer way better deals than some of the traditional hotel style resorts, just to save you some money there. Another thing too, because I am a big food person, I usually spend up on my meals, but I also like to pack snacks. Okay, so especially, I have a 2-year-old daughter. We always have to have snacks in the car. Pack yourself some snacks so you're not just eating your daughter's snacks. But that's a good thing too to help you save money is bring an ice chest full of water and some snacks for you to eat, right? So that she's not yelling at you in the back seat for her snacks. And then last thing on this list is to look for these low cost activities. Like, yes, you can go and pay X amount of money for this nice adventure excursion by a local resident, whatever. Or you can just start walking around yourself. Obviously don't walk into some random area or like private property, but just go walk around the beach yourself, or go to a park and figure it out yourself. I mean, that's some of the best things about vacationing and going on this adventure, is that you get to figure out things yourself, right? So those are some good things, because even the shorter adventures deserve a smart plan, and so that's why I'm giving you these tips so that you can stay within your budget. So the key takeaway today is to set a mini vacation budget and start a travel fund on your terms, okay? I know my wife and I, we like to take at least one trip a year, even if it's just going to see her family in California. We like to plan for that, and we like to stay within our budget. That way, in future years, if we want to take more of a bigger vacation to the beach or something like that, we kind of know, hey, this is about what we spent last time. This is how we want to do things different, right? So it's really budgeting for it, so that way you're not throwing the rest of your financial plan, out the window. Planning ahead doesn't just save you money, but it's going to give you permission to actually enjoy your trip. If you're on your trip and you're just constantly thinking about, oh my God, I want to spend money on this, and no, we're not going to do that because it's just not a budget. Just plan for it ahead of time, and you can have that guilt-free enjoyment that you should be having, right? So what I want everybody to do today is to take 10 minutes out of your very busy day. I know you're very busy, but just take 10 minutes, write this down, okay? Write down your ideal getaway. It doesn't have to be like extravagant, once-in-a-lifetime trip to Disney World or Dubai or something like that. Just if you think you need a vacation, which, let's be honest, we all need some type of vacation, write it down, determine, hey, how much am I going to need for this trip, and then plan for it. Okay, so if you need X amount of money and you want to take this trip in December, decide, okay, how much can I set aside each month or each paycheck to get me to that goal in December? Okay, so remember, it's the small actions that are going to lead to the bigger adventures later on. Okay. All right, well, so that's going to wrap it up for today. As a reminder, everything that I talk about during this show is my opinion and my opinion alone, and it's not to be taken as financial advice, tax advice, or legal advice. Definitely consult a professional on any of those areas. And if you want to meet with a wealth advisor like myself, definitely reach out to us at SWBC, the Wealth Management Division. I hope that you're already subscribed to this podcast, but if you are not, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And I would like for every single person, even the person that you're going to refer this to write in the comments where you're going to be taking your vacation this summer, or where you want to take your vacation. That's a better thing too. Because remember earlier when I told you to write it down, also write it in the comments, okay? Because I want to see it before next time. So again, thank you everybody for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Because it's a financial play. It's stupid. It's so stupid.
Investing involves certain risks, including possible loss of principal. You should understand and carefully consider a strategy's objectives, risks, fees, and expenses, and other information before investing. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change and are not intended to be a recommendation or investment advice. Such views do not take into account the individual financial circumstances or objectives of any other investor that receives them. This information should not be considered a solicitation nor a recommendation of an offer to provide any service in any jurisdiction where it would be unlawful to do so under the laws of that jurisdiction. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Please consult with your individual tax professionals and/or attorney for additional information.